In this video we are going to create an action bar so that we can click it and throw some different spells like Frostbolt and Lightning Bolt and Fireball, because right now we are only able to throw a Fireball at the skeleton. So to do that we will have to bring in some extra sprites. The sprites that I'm going to bring in right now is some UI Sprite, so I need to click create inside my sprites folder and create a new folder called UI, just to keep everything neat. I can also clean up here a little later, but for now let's just leave it like this. I am going to add the empty frame, and I'm going to add the Fireball and the Frostbolt and the Lightning Bolt icon here. So I have the frame and these three icons here, and they need to go in the bottom of the screen. I think that's what I want to bring in now. So we can go to our canvas and right click on it, say UI, and add an image. And this image is going to serve as our action bar, basically. So just rename it to action bar and remove the image so you can't see it. Then we need to select the scene and select the image and hold the mouse over the scene and press F, and then we move to it. Okay, so we can move it to the bottom here and stretch it out so that it takes up the whole width of the screen. So this is going to be the dock area, or the area for our action buttons. So we are going to right click an action bar and select UI and select an image, and this image is going to be called action button 1. Action button 1 is going to be our Fireball, so select it and take the Fireball and drag it onto it. And it's kind of large, right? So we can select the scale here and write 0.5 and 0.5, like so. I think that size fits better. So that's the Fireball, but right now we also need a frame around it. So you can actually just right click on action button, select UI and an image, and this should be named frame. And the frame basically just needs to have this original size, but select the frame and take the frame from here and drag it all the way over to the source image. So now you should be able to see like a frame around the Fireball. So if we just maximize this and play, you should be able to see a simple Fireball icon. One thing I'm not happy with here is the fact that you can kind of see the corners of the Fireball icon underneath it, and we would like it to be hidden so that it looks like the Fireball's inside here. And I also think the edge of the Fireball is going a little over there. So basically we can take the frame. If we select the frame and zoom in on it, we can scale it up a little, just as you like so. And basically I think width and height should be 105 and 105. I think it might be fine. And then if you move it onto it, you shouldn't be able to see the edges. You can still see it up here. Let's see here. There we go. So yeah, select the frame and set width and height to 105, and then move it onto the Fireball. Then it should be totally fine. You shouldn't be able to see the Fireball icon around the edges over here. We could start adding an extra sprite and start masking the sprites underneath so they are not visible outside the frame, but I think that's overkill because this works just as fine. Okay, so now we need to select the action bar, and we need to click add component, and then we need to add a grid layout group. So let's write grid, click the layout group, then you'll see the Fireball jumps right to the end here. So select the action button and press Ctrl D and Ctrl D again, so you duplicate it. So this one should be named action button 2, and this one should be named action button 3. 1, 2, 3. What else? We need to make sure that the space between them are correct. It's totally up to you how you want the space to be and where you want to put them. My start corner is up left. I want to do it horizontally because I want it from left to right. And the child alignment is middle center for me. And then I'm going to take the spacing here and move it to like -43 something. And now I think there's a fine space between them. So then I'm going to select action button 2 and take the Frostbolt and put in and replace the Fireball, and select action button 3 and replace the Thunderbolt, or the Fireball with the Thunderbolt. So now when we maximize, we have an action bar in the bottom here with different spells. right now we can't click them and nothing happens. We can't click anything on the keyboard to execute anything on them. So what I would like to do is to make sure that these three works as buttons. So I select all three of them, click add component and write button. And then you'll see there's a button component that just pops up. And here we will have to add some functionality or call something Unclick to execute the right spell. So before we write the code for doing this, I would like to create some prefabs. So right now we have a fire prefab, and I would like to have a frostbolt prefab and a lightning bolt prefab as well. So basically you can take the fire prefab and duplicate it by pressing Ctrl D, Ctrl D, then select the first one and call it frost prefab, and select this one down here and call it under lightning prefab. And apparently it doesn't rename, so I need to do like this. Yeah, okay, now they are renamed. I don't know why my Unity is not updating here. Just going to delete them down here in my folder and bring them back down, like so, one by one apparently. There we go. Okay, so my asset folder didn't update the name properly, so I had to drag them into the scene and back again. I hope that wasn't too confusing. Anyway, the fire prefab has the right sprite, but the frost and the lightning doesn't. So if I select this one, I would have to select the frostbolt, or sorry, the ice. And if I select the lightning, I have to select that and find the lightning bolt somewhere. There it is, lightning. So one thing is wrong here. They're facing the wrong direction compared to our fire ball. If we go to sprites and select spells, you will see they're facing down and fire is facing to the right. So I need to show them in Explorer and go to spells and rotate left, and right click on this one and rotate left as well. So they're all facing to the right. And there we go. So now it should be fine whenever I start throwing these spells. So if I go to my player, you will see that we have something called spell prefabs. Just gonna minimize this. Spell prefabs here. And there is fire on 0, but element 1 and 2 doesn't have anything. So I need to go to my prefabs and take frostbolt and drag into number 2, because number 2 on the bar here, and lightning and drag it to number 3. And again, you can always switch these around. If you don't like the order here, you can always switch them as you like. With this in place, we can start writing some code. So go to scripts and select your player, because in here we have to change something about his cast spell function. If we go to cast spell down here, it only instantiates something now. So we will actually have to move some functionality. This functionality here will actually have to be moved to cast spell. So let's see, what do we do? We take all this inside the spacebar, because we're not going to use the spacebar anymore. We're going to use button 1, 2, 3 to throw our spells. So we cut this code from input get key down space and just remove this. Then we go to cast spell and paste all the code down here like so. And this instantiate line, we cut that out, and then we move to I think we have a coroutine here, and we remove it to right here, I think. Sorry, after cast spell, I guess. And you know what? We should actually remove cast spell, I think, because this one should be called by pressing one of the buttons. So just remove this. So your attack should look something like this right now. With instantiate and stop attack, and then a yield return, animate as a bool, and is attacking true. And then we have the cast spell that looks like this, exactly like the space button did before, but now we're going to execute this by pressing one of the keys. One thing though, we need to create, or we need to use a specific spell. So we need to add an index here called, it's just called index. We can call it spell index just to make it more clear. And this spell index needs to be used here when we instantiate something. Right now we are only instantiating firebolts, but we need to instantiate a firebolt, frostbolt, or lightning bolt. So up here we are going to say in spell index. We're going to use that spell index down here. which means whenever I start this one, I need to use the spell index as well. So at some place in my code, I'm going to call cast spell with a specific index based on whatever I want to cast. And then I would throw the correct spell up here, because attack takes in the spell index and uses it in the spell prefab array. Right here in my player, we have this array here, and the spell index will select one of these spells. So if it's 0, Fireball, 1, Frostbolt, and 2, Lightning Bolt. Okay, so let's try to bind the buttons to something. If we go out here, we can actually take the action button 1 and click the little plus down here on Unclick, and take the player and move down here, and then we can go to player, and we can select the function called cast spell, and this is the first button, so it needs to cast a fireball, which is 0. Then I can take the next one, click the little plus, take the player and drag it down here, and select my player and cast spell. It's just outside the video, but yeah, find the cast spell function and give it 1. And the last one is going to be our thunderbolt, so let's just do it like this, and find the player and drag him on here, and find the player and cast spell. If you can't see cast spell, it's because you forgot to save your script, so remember to save the script. And this is going to be number 2. Okay, so you might notice that this doesn't really work right now. If I select my skeleton, I have selected him, I have him on target. If I click one of these, nothing really happens. So why doesn't anything happen? Well, it's because we are actually deselecting our target when we click on the button. So I take my target on the enemy and I click the button and I detarget him again. So we need to make sure we don't detarget the enemy when we click a button. And we can do that inside the game manager. And if we go here, we need to add an extra condition to make sure that we don't detarget him by mistake when we click on a button. And that condition is actually just up here in the if statement here. So if we click button 0, we would like to check if our event system, and event system doesn't exist right now, so I need to implement it. Oops, not rename, quick actions here. There's a T missing here, there we go. Using Unity Engine event system. And as usual, if you can't right click and say quick actions, then just go to the top here and write this line of code using Unity Engine event system. If that is current, is pointer over game object. So this line of code checks if my mouse is hovering a UI element on my current event system. So that means when my mouse is over a button, like fireball button or something, then this code is not going to execute. So the code down here will only execute, which means it will only throw a raycast if my mouse is not over a UI element. Right now, before we did this line of code, it will just throw a raycast when I click the button, and it will hit nothing, and it will deselect my target because of this line of code here. But now, because of this, it will only deselect the target if I click somewhere on the map where there's no UI elements. So if we save this and play now, I'm able to target my enemy, look at him, and throw a fireball, or I can throw a frostbolt, or I can throw a lightning bolt, as you can see. So there you have it. Now we can actually attack our enemy with different kind of spells by clicking the action bars. But of course we also like to use 1, 2, and 3 to throw these spells, because mouse clicking is not very effective when you're playing a game. So we are going to create a new script, and keep in mind I'm setting up this script so that it will work later when we create a keybind menu, so we can go in the keybind menu and bind fireball to another key than 1, for example, if we don't want that in our game. So I'm also going to show you that. So right now this script is not finished or anything, it's just going to work for the purpose of using 1, 2, and 3. But we will build it up. So this is going to be a UI manager, and I'm just going to reload here, and I guess I need to reopen it like so. So our UI manager is going to have a reference to all the buttons so that it can set the keybinds on the buttons. So I'm going to make a private button array, and you can see I can't find anything called button, so I can go up here and say using Unity Engine.UI. So then button pops up green. And then we can, if I can hit my keys there, say action buttons. So this is my action buttons. I'm going to serialize this field so that I can simply just go to my scene and drag them in here. And then I'm going to make some key codes. So I'm going to make a key code called action 1, action 2, and action 3. These are my key codes, and these actions will be changed based on whatever you do in the keybind menu we will create later. But for now we will set a default value to them. So action 1 is equal to keycode.alpha1. There it is. So that's key numeric. Okay, I can see that. Numeric key 1. That was very hard to say. Numeric key number 1. So we can copy this and paste it a couple of times. There, 2 and 2 and 3 and 3. So now we will bind the buttons to 1, 2, 3, 1 fireball, 2 frostbolt, 3 thunderbolt. Save. Sorry about that. And then we can go to update. So in here we will check for our key presses. So if input.get key down action 1. So if we click action button 1, we need to do something here. If we click action button 2, we need to do something else. And if we click action button 3, we need to do something different as well. So we need to create a function down here that can be used to click our action buttons. So we say public void, actually it can actually be private now, I think. Action button on click. So this function will click an action button based on an index. So this is my button index. And I can say action buttons. So remember we have the array up here with all the action buttons. And just to make it clear, I'm going to comment this out and just save. Jump to Unity and then you can see what it is. We can create a new game object and call it UI Manager. And then we can add the UI Manager script to it. Open up the action buttons and say we have 3 right now. And take each action button and put it in on a position, okay? So that makes sense, right? We have an array of all the 3 action buttons we have down here. Well, we have a reference to all of them inside the UI Manager. So that means I can go in here and say action buttons index button index. So this is the button index. If we get 0, we should click fireball button. If we get 1, we click the first, and so on. So we need to execute the Unclick function on that button by pressing 1, 2, or 3. So this is the Unclick function we need to execute on the button we have a reference to on our UI Manager here. And we can do that by saying button index dot unclick. That's the Unclick event dot invoke. And this will actually make the same this will execute it like we just clicked it with our mouse. Now we are invoking it. Up here we just need to say action buttons on click number 0, and the next one is 1, and the third one is 2. So now in update we're checking if we're clicking these we made up here keybinds. Yeah, this is our keybinds. So 1, 2, and 3. We're checking if we click them based on if we click any of them. Well, we are going to execute the correct button. Let's save this, and if we go in here, you should be able to use 1, 2, and 3 to throw the spells now. So 3 lightning, 2 frost, and 1 fire. I know these are kind of large. I think they're very big, the frost bolt and the lightning bolt. So I might as well just go into sprites and spells, and I might as well make them a little smaller. Let's say 400 instead. Apply. Let's see if they look a little better now, maybe. Yeah, I think that's better. But you can always adjust it as you want to. They're still a little larger than the fire. But yeah, there you have it. Now we have an action bar, or the beginning of an action bar, that will allow us to use different spells. So thank you very much for watching. Thanks for watching my video. Please remember that InScope Studios is a community founded page, so please consider clicking the support link on the screen to see how you can support me and get something back in return.